So, no, it's fine. So I feel like the request lines are open. I'm like a DJ playing my greatest hits. I love it. So I'm on a plane and I'm playing the game that you often play when people get on the plane. And the game is, I wonder who's sitting next to me today, right? And a beautiful woman gets on the plane. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a while back now, and I'm thinking, I wonder if it could be her, and she walks past me, and it's not her. And then a big guy gets on the plane, supersized, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if it could be him, and he's lumbering down the aisle, and he gets to my row, and then he keeps walking. No, it's not him either. Okay. And then finally, I hear my seatmate before I see him because he's talking on the cell phone. And talk about first impressions. Uh, you know how people talk on cell phones louder than they do in real life, right? Thumbs up if you understand this and agree with me. And I used to be so annoyed at this. How could people be so rude? Why do they have to talk so loud? But then I realized there was real entertainment value in people's personal information, right? If they don't mind, if they want to out all their personal lives to total strangers, what do I care? It's like a reality show. So this guy gets in my row, and he's saying goodbye to a child. And he's got a roller bag that's going to go up above, and he's got a carry-on bag that's going to go under his seat. And I'm in the aisle seat, so he's got to get past me to get to his seat, but he's talking on the phone. So his first impression of me, he doesn't say, how are you today, or excuse me, or do you mind? None of that. He's on the phone, he goes, like that. That's what he does to me. He jerks his, like I'm a dog, And so I could play hard to get, but I didn't. I know what he wants. So I stand up, and as I stand up and he's getting in, he's saying goodbye to a second child who does not want to say goodbye to daddy. I'm learning, right? So the guy sits down, and now there's two of us in the row. And now he's saying goodbye to a third child that is talking into the phone so loudly that I can hear the kid from my seat. And I don't have any kids, but I just feel for the guy, man. I'm just melting because it's just so painful. And now the flight attendant is saying she's got to shut the boarding door because we're going to take off. And everybody's got to hang up the phone. So now he's got to hang up on the kid who's crying because he doesn't want daddy to leave home. And this guy's really in a spot here. It's been a rough call. And finally, the kid's crying. Daddy's got to go. Daddy's got to go. And I'm listening to the whole thing. And then he has to hang up on his son. And I felt terrible. But it just happens. It's nobody's fault. It just happens. And he clicks the phone off, and he shuts it off, and he does a big sigh, like the weight of the world is leaving his shoulders. And I'm sitting next to him, right? And I turned to him, and the very first thing I said, Stephen, Bryce, very first thing I said, I turned to him and I go, Daddy's leaving home, huh? Somebody was asking earlier, how do I decide what to say? Well, I just took a cue from this little skit that I'm in, right? And I go, Daddy's leaving home, huh? And the guy, it was perfect because that's exactly what was on his mind. And he looks at me and he goes, oh, yeah. He goes, you were listening, huh? I go, how could I not? And he starts laughing, because it's funny. It's like a skit now, a Saturday Night Live skit. And I said, it sounded like you're saying goodbye to a whole tribe of kids. How many kids do you have? Probing to the 5th level. How many kids? Daddy's leaving home, right? Yeah, he goes, yeah. I go, wow, it sounds like you have a lot of kids. How many kids do you have? Second question. And he goes, I have 3. And I say, wow, 3 kids. I said, what are their names? And he said, well, we gave them S names, Sandy, Sally, and Scotty. And Scotty's the oldest. That was the one that was crying the loudest just now. And he's like beside himself. He still doesn't know what happened just now. And I go, wow, he's the oldest. How old is he? How old are the kids? And he goes, well, it's 8, 6, and 5. Right? You see all the information I'm getting. And he knows nothing about me. Right? And I say, well, this is terrible. Does this happen often? And he goes, more often than I would like. I'm a sales manager and I travel a lot. And I say, well, how much do you travel? Now I'm at the 5th level. How much do you travel? And he goes, well, I'm going, this would be pre-COVID, I'm going about 15 days a month. I'm like, oh my gosh, you have 3 small kids and you're gone 15 days a month. Wow. And I said, tell me, because now we're talking about work. And that's an interesting thing too, Bryce and Stephen, that the questions kind of lead into each other. Like you notice the next question I'm going to ask, I couldn't have asked first. But I know he's a sales manager now who travels 15 days a month. So the next question to me is in logical flow. I say, well, can you tell me, why do you travel? Why do you have to travel? You're the sales manager. Why do you have to travel so much? And he says, because I have to make sure my people are working a full day. So now we've had 6 questions, none of which I knew I never knew what the next question was going to be until it unveiled itself to me. But I'm learning a lot about this cat. But here's the interesting part, right? It's the reverse presentation. I've learned a lot about him, but he's learned nothing about me. And he's now learned, Mary, this is your favorite part, that I've learned a lot about him and he knows nothing about me. He's now told a complete stranger the names and ages of his children, how many children he has, what he does for a living, how often he travels, and his biggest problem at work. And he knows nothing about me. And it's time to play catch up. Remember I told you earlier, when you show interest in others, others will show interest in you, right? And so I've asked him all these questions, and now it's his turn to ask me a question. And he turns to me and he says, and it's an interesting question because he's just got to play catch up now, right? And he says, I'm sorry, he says, I didn't get your name. Now, my name is not important, but he feels like he's got to learn something about me right now because he's like, this stranger has all this personal info. And I said, well, my name's Michael Angelo Caruso. And I held out my hand like this to shake it. And he shakes my hand. He goes, Michael Angelo Caruso. He says, that's an amazing name. I said, thank you very much. And now he asked me his second question. He says, and what do you do for work, Michael? And I'm still shaking his hand. And I said, well, I teach sales managers, I teach salespeople how to work a full day. And his eyebrows go up like this. He starts laughing. And he says, that's fantastic. It was almost like the whole thing was rehearsed, everybody, And then he goes, can I have a card? And the lady in front of me who was listening to the whole thing, she says, can I have one too? I'm also in sales. Oh, it was such a great, and it became a huge signature story for me. It's on YouTube. That's how Mary remembers it, maybe. She probably heard it from me in person, but it's also on YouTube. And these kinds of stories, they unveil themselves to you, and they illustrate all of the things we've been talking about today about the first 15 seconds and the amazing power of first impressions.